I'm inspired. I'm inspired.
Hey there guys, how's it going? My name is Suman Chatterjee from the Flow Zone Academy, and I'm a flow state coach, which means that I help you feel better and perform better. Today I'm breaking down Doctor Strange as a character. Now this is one of my favorite movies, specifically because of the elements that it has that connect it to the flow state. Okay, and now this is what I'm really going to get to, and I'm excited to tell you guys about this today. Okay, so first of all, I just want to give a brief shout out to Pete Kirkwood, who, after doing a character consultation with me, he came to the conclusion that I was the trope or the archetype of the Kung Fu Wizard, because I have all these flow state tools and flow state techniques that I can actually use with myself and with my clients. Doctor Strange is a Kung Fu Wizard. He has tools that help him get into the flow, right? He fights, which is a martial arts. However, at the same time, he has all of these, supernatural, occult, magic powers, right? So the first thing I want to say is that this movie has a huge influence from psychedelics in like the 60s, and I did a breakdown of the movie Lucy. As you know, that had a bunch of psychedelic effects, but this one, there's even more here, right? Like Stan Lee reading Aldous Huxley's Doors of Perception, right, which is a classic book about the drug mescaline, and just like this entire like psychedelic drug trip
that is hilarious
that Doctor Strange goes through, and him wearing the Pink Floyd shirt. It's powerful to recognize that the elements of ecstasis that the Flow Genome Project released was selflessness, timelessness, effortlessness, and richness, and we see this all just expanded in this movie. Okay, we see it in so many different elements. First of all, understand that Stephen Strange, or Doctor Strange in this case, is his own enemy. What do I mean by that? His enemy is his own ego. One of the first scenes you see is him washing his hands, okay? A really close-up of his hands, because he's a surgeon. That's what his ego represents, is his hands. That is his skill set. That is what he's here for. Okay? That's how he constructs his identity from that thing. And once he gets injured in his hands, his whole identity crumbles, and he goes through an ego death, essentially. But if you notice also in the psychedelic trip, there's that scene where he's looking at his hands and hands are growing from his fingers, right? That is an incredible example of that same theme of the hands being like representative of his ego, because he was a surgeon, right? He was a doctor that used his hands all the time in surgery. And so if you take that one skill set away from him, what does that mean? Okay, that selflessness and losing himself. I believe there's also a scene in regards to the ego where the Ancient One tells him that it's not all about you.
It's not about you.
Well, first of all, we notice that, there is this disintegration of Doctor Strange into dust particles, right? There's like this ego death, but also this idea of there is no time, okay? Because I am the master of time, and I'm able to speed it up and slow it down, just like the flow state, right? He has this time stone, and this is really about his own inner game and inner work, if you think about it, because there's this one scene where the Ancient One tells him, we never lose our demons, we only learn to live above them.
Never lose our demons, Mordo. We only learn to live above them.
Of course, there's this whole time manipulation thing where time is reversing and going back and forth, kind of like movies like Looper or Back to the Future, or like even Time Squad, or even the movie Tenet for that matter, right? And also the idea of the egotism is that Dormammu, where he's fighting this creature, right, in this dark realm, is actually voiced by the actor Benedict Cumberbatch in this movie. Look this up, guys. It is representative of his own ego. I'm telling you this. So timelessness in this movie is represented by him overcoming death. We understand by the end of the movie that fear of death and time aren't actually things that are scary, but they are actually things that make the world who we are. And this impermanence is actually the beauty of life, this memento mori, right? I remember my death. I understand that it's going to happen. It's short-lived. And we also get another great a speech from the Ancient One explaining this.
We don't get to choose our time. Death is what gives life meaning. To know your days are numbered. Your time is short.
There's this theme of transformation as well, if you notice, in his psychedelic trip, where he, she touches his eye, which is open your eye, and it's actually his third eye, right? But also representative of the bling bling he wears called the Eye of Agamotto, right? When he touches this butterfly, I think that's really symbolic of this transformation. This chrysalis, right, to this butterfly, and I think that's such a powerful imagery in the movie itself, because he is going through transformation. I mean, he is actually going off to Kamartaj, which is this, land, a far-off land, an invented land. However, understand that I think Iron Fist, had a similar land, and also understanding that, because it's in such a far-off land, he has the freedom to do what he wants in that land. Okay? The writer of the storyline has freedom to use this place, Kamartaj, to have a richness of the environment. Richness of the environment is very crucial in terms of flow state. It means that the environment can stimulate you. Well, you already know because of this Inception or Matrix level trippiness that's happening, where cars are going into other cars, and buildings are merging and toppling over, and it's such a visual feat. It's like a CGI melting pot almost, right? It's so trippy, and it's such a visual amazing thing to watch, right? Because of this mirror reflection thing, there is a lot to do with what we reflect, what we project inside, we reflect outside, right? And that's how those powers technically work. Those shields, but also just using something like the mirror dimension. And also there's this quantum realm in the whole trip sequence, you could say. That's what I'm calling it, because that's exactly what it is. It's known as also a healing place. You'll know in Ant-Man and the Wasp they also use that as symbolic of the healing realm, okay, the quantum. Now you also have this scene of him turning this apple backwards and forwards through time, and I think that is also representative of the dark secrets of alchemy, okay? And understanding that it's like the forbidden fruit, okay? It's representative of the forbidden fruit. He has this knowledge, but, did he earn that knowledge, okay? Then you also have him in this one scene where he's doing a surgery on himself, right? But he's in the astral realm looking at his own body, so this out-of-body experience is very common with the flow state, okay? You get out of your body, you lose your sense of self, you lose your sense of time, right? And I think that the heart, he's doing a surgery on his own heart, or his girlfriend at the time is, but he's instructing her to. And so I think it's important to notice this, because the heart is actually one of the things that we use for manifestation. We need it to desire. We need it. It's basically like the remote control for manifestation, essentially, right? So he's fixing his own ability to create the reality that he wants by fixing his heart, or getting his woman who loves him to fix his heart. And I think it's something to do with that kind of imagery of how the heart wins over the ego, or the soul, in this case the spirit, wins over the ego. Of course, then we also have this whole kind of simulation theory thing, where there's this game board type of imagery. Oh yeah, bringing back the idea of timelessness, that memento mori. The Ancient One says your days are numbered, your time is short. So this reminder that, hey, we only have a limited time here on this planet. It's such an interesting storyline, right? Because he's this amazing character, and he is going on this journey or path, and he is kind of this effortless guy, right? He's a very left brain type of guy.
Also a great example of effortlessness is Wong. If you notice, he's very in touch with the physical and the metaphysical world. He listens to Beyonce, for Pete's sake, right?
If you think about it. But he's engaging in this world to go on this right brain adventure of him gaining all these powers, and eventually, he now has that hemisphere synchronization. He has that harmony within his personality where his ego crumbles down, but through the process of his ego crumbling down, he can actually transform himself and eventually be the hero of his own journey. And now he has his own movie franchise, right? And now there's a movie coming out in 2022 as well, which I'm excited for. Because every time you watch this movie, you'll see a little different element or an Easter egg, and that's what a lot of these Marvel movies do. I know that. However, it's very interesting just to see that in this movie, and it's one of my favorites. If you guys haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. Of course, I also want to mention that the whole elements of the chakras, the chakra system and mystical science, and mixing that with the whole, just the idea of these magical powers. I definitely think that there are magical powers in the Eastern philosophy and the Eastern practices. And being able to learn that by yourself, you can actually use it to tap into your flow state. When you actually open up the higher chakras, in this sense, is what Doctor Strange has done. But it's depicted through him getting these, powers. However, at the same time, I think it's important to recognize that, this symbolism of discipline, of monkhood, of going through this process, of learning something, of acquiring a skill set, that is all flow state. Alright, it's all flow state. So that's kind of my breakdown of it, and I think that if you have any other questions for me, I'd definitely love to discuss this. But I think it's very interesting on how this link between peak performance and Doctor Strange. And I definitely wanted to let you guys know my perspective of how I'm able to look at this movie differently now through my craft. So I hope you enjoyed this. Have an amazing day. May the flow be with you and stay legendary.